Mhm. Welcome, everybody. This is a very exciting moment and a very exciting topic that we're discussing today, assertiveness and empathy and the balance between that. And this is the interview with Sabahat Naureen. And Sabahat is a leadership coach, executive coach, and a project manager and a finalist of a NegotiateUp competition. This call is recorded. If you are not comfortable, you can drop off or you can stay on mute and without video. That's up to you. And this video could be used for educational purposes and posted on LinkedIn, YouTube. So be aware of that, please. Thank you very much for gathering together. I'm so excited to talk today and ask some questions to Sabahat. Thank you, Sabahat, for accepting this invitation. How are you today?
Thank you, Vlad, for inviting me. This was so awesome. I'm so excited to kind of chat with you and kind of interact with the rest of the people from the negotiation practice community. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. Today is Friday, so it's the end of the week. I'm excited for that. And then the holidays are coming up, so I'm excited to just kind of take it easy for the next week, 2 weeks.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, the holidays are coming up, and that's exciting time, Christmas time. I was looking at the post that you made in LinkedIn, and I got interested in what you do, and I'm wondering how long have you been leadership coach, executive coach, and how is it related to negotiation?
Yeah, so I've been a leadership coach and executive coach for about 4 years now. And so I became a coach while I was already working a full-time job. Okay, so my job, a career was as a project manager, project management consultant, right? So it's very interesting because as a project manager as a project manager, I was always negotiating, right? I was always on a customer facing, client facing side where we were negotiating contracts, deadlines, budgets, schedules, like resources, expectations, everything, right? So I was always negotiating, and I kind of at first it was weird and it was awkward at the very beginning of my career, and slowly it started getting better. I started learning about negotiation. At the same time, I started becoming a leadership coach. And then I saw that when I was actually helping others, coaching others who were in similar positions in leadership roles or in project manager roles, I saw that as a leader, you need to know how to negotiate really well. Right. So I kind of, at that point, that's when I kind of incorporated negotiation training into my leadership coaching, and I started giving some courses and workshops on it. A lot of them based for towards professionals, women, men, because I saw how imperative it was for people, anyone who's in a career that kind of faces customers a lot, because as we know, negotiation is everywhere. So I think I've been doing this for about 4 years now, negotiating for longer, but coaching for about 4 years. Leadership coaching, negotiation, both.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you've gained a lot of momentum on that, and maybe you took some formal education about negotiation. Could you talk a little bit about that? What is your negotiation style? And
It's so funny you asked me that, actually, because when I was in the NegotiateUp competition, at the last, remember the last team that we had during the finals? We were in a team of 4 versus a team of 4, and we were talking about it. And then all 4 of us, the other 3 guys in my team, they were like telling me like, oh yeah, this course and that course, right? And I kind of said, I've never actually taken any formal education around negotiation. I haven't. Everything has been real life practice, real life experience, and basically just reading books. And my favorite book is, of course, Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. That was the first one that I read, and I loved it. I started applying it to when I was actually negotiating with clients at work. Started working, and I was like, oh, there's something there. This is amazing. Then I read a couple other books, and so that was basically it. I haven't actually ever taken any formal courses. I think it might be helpful to at some point, because I've heard some really good ones about a specific one on Coursera. But so up till now, no formal courses. It's all real life and books, especially Chris Voss. So yeah, and I think the other thing you asked me was, what's my negotiation style like, right?
mm-hmm.
I think my negotiation style is very friendly, because I think that's kind of what I lead with. I've found that that works really well, and collaborative. So I think and then it's at the end is a little bit of the assertiveness sprinkled in. So that is not what I lead with. I don't lead with the assertiveness. I lead with the friendliness and the collaborativeness, and that's where the empathy comes in. But then there is the background of assertiveness that is always there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very interesting. And how do you strike the balance between that friendliness and assertiveness?
Yeah, that's I think that's the question that opened up this whole discussion, right, Vlad? And that is I think a question that is very important, and something that I think as negotiators or people who are kind of collaborating with others or making deals with others, we need to kind of keep that in mind a lot. And I don't think I have the hard and fast answer, but for me, what I find, having that attitude, going in with an attitude of collaborativeness and empathy and friendliness, is what I call setting the scene, setting the tone, right? The foundation of everything is that, right? Like I want to, when I started talking to you, right? If we are, say, negotiating, I'm going to start the same way that I started this conversation. If we're negotiating about something, it would have started the same way. I would not have gone a different way and had a different face on. It's about building that rapport, building that, it's all about setting the scene. It's all about setting the scene. When the other person feels like, okay, I think I can talk to this person. The other person is not going to have their guards up, right? So if the guards are not up, it's so much easier to get to a final endpoint, right? At the same time, assertiveness. So the whole time while we're negotiating, I'm pulling pretty firm on where I want to end up at the end. So I am setting the scene, very friendly, empathetic, but at the same time, I know what my walkaway point is. I know what I'm trying to achieve. And I'm going to be kind of sticking to that while having a very collaborative kind of approach.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. So you setting up the scene in the very beginning, establishing a rapport, and that opens the door for more collaboration, where you potentially can add assertiveness without facing maybe defensiveness.
Yeah, exactly. So because I find it's easier to be assertive with people when you have set the tone already in a very friendly, relatable, approachable way than when you come in with the assertiveness, because that sometimes it can work, but sometimes the other party gets the guards up right away, like, oh, because maybe the other person wanted to collaborate, but now they see that you're coming in with like, okay, this is what I want, this is how we should go, this is what my expectations are, then sometimes it might put them like a bit more, I mean, there's always in my what I've seen so far, my experience, there's always so much value in going in and trying to build some rapport. So then they like just bring the walls down a little bit, soften them up, soften the conversation up, right? It's easier to make it more assertive and more the conversation more tough after is soft than the other way. If it's first soft and then you can make it tougher, but if it starts tough, you can't really make it softer later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like assertiveness is a necessary attribute of negotiating. Why is it so important to even have that assertiveness in your negotiation?
Yeah. Well, I think it's at the end of the day, we're all people that want to get the best outcome, right? For the other person, but also for ourselves, right? Like at the end of the day, if we feel like we've given away the farm, then we don't feel that accomplished at the end of it. So we kind of always want to know, we want to get this much at least, right? We always want to get this amount back from this deal. We want to get this outcome from this deal at least. So I think that's where the assertiveness definitely comes in. Like, so the other person knows that, wow, this person is really collaborative and friendly, but they still definitely want to get that. So then once they know that you're pretty firm or pretty set on getting to a specific outcome or a specific few outcomes while collaborating, then they will kind of respect you more as well, right? So I think it's also like you instill respect in the other person when you show that these are the reasons why you definitely want to get to that outcome. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering if anyone has a question at this point, want to ask about this balance between assertiveness and empathy and using assertiveness in the negotiation. Anybody? All right. If not, I'm wondering about the next question. Since you have experience negotiating and you've kind of created your own perception of what is a balance between uncertainty and empathy, and you practice in the CRISPR tool. So what does it take from you, from your point of view? What does it take to be a great negotiator?
Yeah, I think I think being a great negotiator is it's a lot about collaboration, right? Like you need to have the idea that that you'll have to collaborate, because the old definition of negotiation is not really valued anymore, where you just go in and you win and you leave and you're like, yes, I made the best deal and we're good to go, right? Like that doesn't really apply anymore these days, right? So I think being a really, really good listener is number one for a good negotiator, right? And you could say that, oh yeah, I'm a great listener, right? But it all shows when you actually start talking in a negotiation. You'll see there's people who, like when two parties are talking, you might see sometimes that one person talks more than the other, right? And it could be because they're saying things, right? But I think as a great negotiator, you just ask some questions and you really listen, right? And then they say something, and then you take that something they said and ask leading questions into that, right? So not just I'm listening, but like really like actively deep listening, where you active listening, where you're not just listening to what they're saying, but then taking something from there and asking more leading questions so you can get to the heart of the matter. So I think that's number one. And I think Chris Voss talks a lot about this in his books, right? Just like asking questions, like labeling, oh, so you sound like this. Oh, so you said you're this, right? So asking those questions to get to the heart of the matter is, I think, number one for a negotiator. And I think I don't know who here watched the negotiation finals, right? The NegotiateUp. But if you watch those finals, right, I was trying to actually employ those tactics because I noticed that when the other party was saying a couple of things that was quite like emotionally charged, right? And then they felt like we were not hearing them. So I would pipe in and say, oh, so I heard you mention this a lot. And as soon as I said that, they smiled. They're like, yes, thank you, right? So it's about those listening skills, just listening, saying it back to them, what we have just heard. And so that, I think, builds that trust even more, that, oh, wow, this person really is here to listen to me. So I think that's number one. Listening is key. Knowing that how you will have to collaborate, so not having a very, very fixed viewpoint, but being a bit flexible so you know that you can collaborate with the other person. And striking the right balance between empathy and assertiveness. Usually it's like people might think, oh, assertiveness and empathy, this is empathy and this is assertiveness, and two ends of the scale. But it's about finding the balance between, and sometimes you'll have to go back and forth on the scale as the conversation evolves. So knowing when to go back and forth on the scale is also really important for a good negotiator.
Oh, thank you. What is the best guideline for going back and forth? When do you understand that you need to be more assertive?
Well, that's hard to say. That's super hard to say right now. Let me ask you that. If you feel that you're negotiating with somebody and you feel that, okay, this is not going anywhere near, I don't think this is going anywhere, right? Would you be more assertive? Like if you feel like you're kind of in a deadlock, like you're kind of in the middle, it's not really going anywhere. What would your approach be at that point? Would you be like, okay, let's go in with, here's what I want? Or would you be like, oh, let me ask more questions? What do you think you would do, for example?
Well, it's funny that when you start to say that, we already kind of build a reflex here in the negotiation practice community that if we are finding ourselves fighting, this means that there's an elephant in the room nobody's calling out. So it's not like I need to push harder. I just need to get out of the box. We are not calling out that something is going on and everybody's thinking about this, but and acting upon that, but nobody's actually saying that.
Right.
So that's one thing, and the other thing that is actually my takeaway from the crucial conversations. Crucial conversations is another kind of not negotiation, but you can call it a negotiation as well. So they say if people finding themselves fighting during a collaboration or conversation, that means there is no whether mutual purpose or mutual respect. So you kind of need to think about what is you need to start building it, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm wondering if assertiveness is a specific condition or specific tool that you need to use in a certain times when you really need to say we don't do this deal or we don't do it this way. So and I was wondering if you have a certain habit of using assertiveness in a certain situations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I view assertiveness and so I view empathy as the way to approach the conversation, right? Way to approach the conversation and way to open up the conversation. And assertiveness, I view it as what I need to do to protect my BATNA, my outcome, right? So we all know when we want to walk away from a deal. This is our BATNA. If we're not reaching that, if we're not meeting that, we're walking away, right? So assertiveness is what we need to display or what we need to use to protect that, so that so people don't come. So the other person or the other company, organization, entity doesn't come and really try to take it away and completely leave you with nothing. It's your way of protecting your badness. So I guess the answer to that would be when do you put in the assertiveness? Is when you feel that the other party is coming too close to really coming to not giving you your outcome. That's when you put that assertiveness in. That's when you use it to protect your badna, your final outcome.
Great, interesting, and I guess it seems like it's the situation when you really need to directly say something to your other party in a competition, in a negotiation, what really matters to you. So being more direct, maybe assertiveness, being more direct, being more clear about what you are after, something that would guide the conversation towards certain direction or out of certain direction.
Yeah, like something that something that what is important to you or what you are not going to accept. Even that, right? Because it's okay to tell people, well, that is not acceptable to me, right? And we can say that in a way that's not going to get people angry at us, right? There's definitely ways to say that, but it's the act of telling them like, oh, that Vlad is, I can't work with that. I hear that's very important to you, but that I cannot work with. So how about we work with this instead, right? So just putting your foot, it's about putting your foot down, saying that I cannot work with, right? So should we look at a different way of doing it?
It's very, very interesting because what we find out when we practice negotiation tools, Chris was negotiation tools in practice, we really take time to employ empathy, and we are training ourselves to be empathic and listening. And oftentimes we find ourselves or getting feedback that we are quote quote beating around the bush. So from this perspective, assertiveness is more of a tool, a time-saving tool that allows to cut off something not important or something that is not practical to go and expand on, and more directing the conversation in a certain way where presumably the solution is or could be residing.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's a great way to say it, but to also employ assertiveness as the way to direct the conversation when you feel like we're not going anywhere. We've been just talking about beating about the bush for so long. Yeah, great point, Vlad. You can use it to direct it to where you want to go.
All right, thank you. Anybody have a question about assertiveness and how to use assertiveness in negotiation? So, okay, well, think about your questions, put in the chat, and my next question will be in our conversation. You touch on like 4 areas on what it takes to actually strike a good balance between assertiveness and empathy, and that includes understanding the human psychology. And that was really interesting. What's behind that? Like, what is that psychology that you're looking for? You need to understand.
Yeah. So when I had mentioned that about understanding human psychology, it is about like what I was talking about is that I think it's like understanding that people want to be heard, right? People want to be heard. People want to be like there's the 3 parts of like a human, like all humans want to feel. That is seen, heard, and understood, right? Um, sorry, there's a question. We'll look at that later. Yeah, so people want to be seen, heard, and understood, for example, right? And that's where the assertiveness, that's where the empathy part comes in, right? And if we can actually make them feel seen, heard, and understood right away, or during the course of the negotiation, then they're way more to be likely to be able to cooperate, collaborate, all of those, right? I have worked with people where they come into a negotiation super angry and just very irate, just starting off. They're not happy. They're not here to collaborate at all, right? They're just mad, right? And that has happened many times, right? So when that happens, like it's still as the other on the other end, we could just be like, well, you know what, you go to hell and we go to hell too, and then nothing happens. So I think understanding human psychology, okay, so if that someone is angry, the reason they might be angry or is whatever, right? But the end of the day is because they're not feeling seen, heard, and understood, right? So if I could just somehow make them feel seen, heard, and understood, or one of the two, like heard or understood a little bit, then maybe right now I won't be able to make a negotiation outcome, but maybe this will set the stage for the next time. They'll be like, oh, at least Sabahat like understood what I was about last time, right? So understanding people's basic needs and addressing them in the conversation is that's where under like the human psychology understanding comes in.
Yeah.
Like I heard that I was heard that when someone is really, really mad, right? That's the main thing. They're not feeling heard, and that's when they're angry, right? If you think about a work deal, if you think about your relationship at home, whatever, your partner is mad, right? Whatever it is happening, most of the time, the reason someone is really angry is because they're just not feeling heard, right? Just say, I hear you, or you seem angry, or anything like that. They're like, okay, I just got heard. Then they kind of like, instead of saying, calm down, right? They're not feeling heard. But if you say, oh, you seem really angry, you seem like you got very upset over this, or whatever it is, like, and actually show them that yes, I hear you and I am understanding you, and match where they're at, then they will be much more likely to kind of open up and be like, okay, yes, like they might not be happy right away, but it definitely helps to set the scene, at least if not for that negotiation, but the next one after.
So it sounds like it's not really hard to do, but for some reason people don't do this.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and the people who do, they are in a better position in negotiation.
Yeah, exactly. And why do you think that people don't do this?
Yeah, well, this is really interesting that it is not a brainer. It is something that everyone can do. And really, we're wondering what does it take to be a great negotiator, it's not much.
No,
What do you think?
it's not much. It's really not much. And the reason why people don't do a lot of these things, sometimes people don't know. Let's say, right? People maybe haven't read into human psychology. They haven't read Chris Voss. They haven't like done all these practices, all over that. That is one part, right? Other part is, well, there's a few different reasons why people don't do it, right? One is people don't know. Fine. And then sometimes people know, but they just read it, but they don't employ it, right? Because they forget about it or they don't practice it. And because of that, it's not part of it. Another reason, and that's the most interesting part to me, is that people know it. Even sometimes I don't always use it, right? I don't always use it. And the reason is because of emotions, right? We're all humans. So sometimes we will let our own emotions override how we know that how we know we should be behaving for the best outcome, right? We let our own emotions get in the way. We ourselves get reactive. We say, how dare they're saying this to us? How dare they're upset, or how dare they want that from this? And then we kind of let that override all the other good things that we should be doing that get there. So I think human emotion is the biggest factor after not knowing how to do them. That the reason people don't do it. And I'm guilty of that too sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, we all getting triggered, and we kind of need to consciously working on not getting triggered. And we all have mirror neurons, and we all
Yeah.
reflecting what's happening, and we actually need to drive it instead of being a victim of it, and therefore conscious action on a psychological level, it's pretty important. The other thing is uh, maybe some beliefs that people have maybe becoming subconscious, like subconscious belief from childhood that certain patterns give you very quick results.
Yeah, of course.
So maybe it's easy to hammer your subordinate and get what you want
Yeah. Well,
immediately,
it,
instantly.
short term, maybe, you think, oh, that's the way to go. Negotiation. Oh, what do you mean? Like, you mean just get the best deal. Tell them this is what I want. It's funny. This reminds me, sometime, I think about 2 years ago, okay, at a conference, I was facilitating a negotiation workshop. Okay. It was a conference of project managers and project directors and project management professionals and just professionals, right? So right before my negotiation thing, right before my workshop, I was sitting at a table and I told this gentleman who was like a vice president or director of some big firm, right? He's like, oh, I'm doing a negotiation workshop, and he was like, oh, what about negotiation? What's there to like get to a workshop about? I was like, oh, okay, and I kind of just like heard what he's saying. He's like, oh, like I just go and get the best deal, whatever, right? Like, just who cares about like so then I was like, oh, that's very interesting that there's still people like that who think that way.
Mhm.
It was like, what is there to get a win-win mutual benefit negotiation like result for? What is that? What is that about? It's just all about me getting the best deal. I win, they lose, right? And they just made a joke about it. I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. So it's about that conditioning that you're talking about, right? That it's whatever you've like you've grown up with, or whatever you've done all your career, maybe is the industry that you're in, right? Like, I don't know if there's anyone who's a car salesman, but a long time ago, car salesman used to have a bad rap, right? Saying like, oh, they just come and they just hammer the thing on you and then they just go. So they're not all like that anymore, 100% for sure. But like it's about the industry, how you've been taught, how you grew up, like you said, that
Mhm.
people might think this will get the best results, but nowadays it just doesn't work anymore.
Obviously, we live in a different world from what we lived 10 years ago or 20 years ago, especially with all this communication technologies that emerged very recently.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to hide anything, and networking becoming so massive in, giving some massive results in our professional lives. It is pretty important, and reputation as a good negotiator, a good person we would like to deal with in the future. And this is pretty much the theme of Negotiate Up competition, though what we discussed is
Yeah.
whether people will be inclined to deal with you
Yeah.
later. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Exactly. I always say that at the end of the day, like three things are the most important. And that's how I see it. And that's what I teach people in my negotiation trainings is that reputation,
Hmm.
relationships, and integrity. These are the three things that are the most important, right? Like at the end of the day, your reputation as a negotiator or as whatever it is so important, right? Your reputation will follow you everywhere, right? After this, unless you're retired and you're dying, I don't know, right? But it's like it is going to follow you everywhere.
Hmm.
Relationships, yes, because relationships, sometimes it might not. You might have to burn a few bridges because of whatever reason. Fine, but in the business world, we know how important relationships are for like recurrent deals, recurrent business, right? So relationships, to keep that intact is important, right? And finally, integrity, right? You need to be somebody who people, if you lie during a negotiation and people find out later on you lied about it and you made a deal based on an assumption of a lie, a little bit here and there is fine, but other than that, it's those three are the most important from what I've experienced.
Hmm. All right, we have a question here. Have you ever been in a negotiation that didn't go as you wanted?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Simo, I have. I think we've all kind of been in. I don't think there's anyone who has been in negotiation where they've gotten everything they want every single time. That would be just weird. I
Chris
don't know.
was
Yeah, only Chris Voss. Only Chris Voss.
97%. He's saying 97% is a pretty awesome rate. That means, well, not 97, 93%, 93. So in other words, 7% is a lost deal, even for hostage negotiators. So
Crazy. That's crazy. I have to start making it like tracking them to see what my percentage is, but it's nowhere near 93%. That's for sure. Yeah, I definitely have lost deals. There's one that comes to mind actually. I was in a when I was working as a project manager, I went in. I went into a negotiation with a client. Right, we had talked about it before. There was some problem on some project somewhere, and there was some extra costs coming up, and the client had to pay for it. Right, so we went into the negotiation. I brought along one of my team members. Okay, I brought along one of my team members who I thought would have other knowledge on this project, some things that I wouldn't know about. Anyway, so I brought him along, and everything was going okay, and I knew exactly kind of what level I was gonna like, what my phases of the talk conversation was going to be. Okay, and my counterpart, not my counterpart, sorry, my team member, they were supposed to kind of just sit there, and I would consult with him and he would pipe in when required. So we were talking, right? And then I was talking about, like, my counterpart, the client, was telling me this is what went wrong, this is what happened. I said, okay, there's a little bit of conflict as well. So I'm trying to handle that, the conflict as along with the negotiation, talking about that. And I thought, okay, now I'm going to go and sell. This is how much we're gonna charge you. This is how it's gonna go. And then, of course, the client was not going to say, "Oh, this is too much." Then I would know what I would do next. My team member then suddenly pipes up and he goes like, "Okay, we'll give you half off." Right? I know everyone was like, "What?" Yeah, me too. And I kind of just stopped. I was like, looked at him like, "Where did that come from?" So I kind of, I was just like speechless. Like, what? Like, how? We did not discuss this. What is going on here? What do you mean we're gonna have? I didn't say anything, right, at the time, because I was sitting across the table from my clients, right? So obviously, I'm not going to get into this conversation with my team member, because at the end of the day, you have to keep the face. Like, we were a united front. We've talked about this, whatever. But he took me by surprise completely. But we'll give you half off. And then as soon as the client heard that, they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah. So they just kind of jumped on it because they're like, oh my God, perfect. Right. And that's kind of, and I said, whoa, actually, wait a second. I did not look into the numbers for this yet. Let's take a look. And he's like, and the client was then mentioned, took advantage of that, of this whole thing. And they said, well, your team member just said he'll get half off. So we're going to just go with that. And from
Mhm.
there, I kind of tried to do what I could to do less damage control, but I just said, I'll get
Mhm.
back to you and let me take a look. He doesn't know enough. I still have to like take a
Mhm.
look at it, whatever. And obviously I couldn't, save it as much. I had to, at the end of the day, end up giving half off to the client, even though that was not what I was intending on doing. Yeah, so that was where my negotiation did not go according to what I wanted at all.
Yeah, that's very interesting lesson actually. We do not practice a lot the team negotiation, like when you negotiate with your team and there's a team on the other side. It is probably a really important aspect of negotiation to understand how to set it up, how to prepare to avoid things like that. It is a pretty important lesson. I'm wondering, how did you how did you what did you learn from that, and how did you avoid that in the future? I mean, how you did after that event?
Yeah, exactly. Team negotiations are actually, I guess a lot happens a lot, right? Because yeah, we do one-on-one, but there is still so much team negotiations that happens, and the negotiative finals was one of the examples. And I think King asked whether the link is somewhere. Yes, it was on YouTube, and I will find the link at the end of the call, and I will paste it on here, and you can watch the finals for that. But yes, so yes, from that failed negotiation with my teammates and me not collaborating enough for us to collaborate with the client. From that, I basically I learned that I need to get on the same page with my team before going in. Right. I think I had assumed in that instance, I had assumed that, well, I'm clearly the lead person to talk. I'm the lead negotiator or the lead in this conversation to talk to the client, and because that's what our roles were. Like I was a project manager, he was a different kind of supervisor, so he wasn't supposed to talk about this. But so that I assumed that it would be common knowledge for both of us. But assumption is our enemy. We can't assume anything. We have to always confirm our assumptions and validate them. So I should have at the beginning of it told them, okay, so let me do the talking, and when I ask you, then you can chime in. If you have an offer or anything to say about it, then keep it with you and tell me first, or write it down for me, or tell me after the meeting, right? But don't put it out there to the client, because I've done a lot of my research already. I have my numbers written down. I know the financials. So let me do that talking. Or if you want to tell me something beforehand, for sure. But let's strategize about that, like in more clarity, with more clarity. And I feel like I had not done that before with him for that instance. So now that was my takeaway, my lesson learned, is that we need to have very, very clearly defined roles. What can be really clear to me might not be so clear to somebody else.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that's kind of
Yeah,
what we did for the finals at Negotiate Up. We had very
yeah.
clearly defined roles. We had Excel sheets with like 3 different scenarios of which option we're going to go with. And we
Hmm.
knew who's the lead negotiator. And when this topic comes up, that I jump in, things like that. So, and that worked very well for us.
That's great. I'm really excited to learn more about this, and also about the negotiation workshop that you put together. This is probably that something that negotiation practice community will benefit from. And we currently have 10 plus sessions a week and variety of different topics, including the reflective listening from the suicide hotline. And we also would love to have the team by team negotiation and all the preparation related to that. It would be great to know, and also maybe to have a kind of boost our negotiation skills. It would be great to have people join the negotiation workshop as well, and kind of puts together something that would give a lot of value in a very short period of time. So it would be great to talk to you, not now, but maybe offline, Sabahat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We can talk about that offline for sure. Yeah.
I'm so happy you've joined the negotiating practice community. We have an opportunity to practice Chris Voss and Black Swan group tools here. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, totally. Like I think, like I said, I think the only negotiation book and thing I refer to back and forth is always Chris Voss. I think he has the whole like that. It's so like his approach is so aligned with my approach, which is like let's understand the person, let's use our language, our talking to like get to the other person's minds. That I love it. He's the guru, I feel, of it. So yeah, for sure. I'm excited too. I think your community is very, very rich and there's a lot of great discussion happening, Vlad. I'm glad I've joined it.
Well, it's rich in terms of knowledge, but not in terms of money. It's free.
Knowledge is all we can hope for right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Sabahat. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if anyone else have any questions. Sabahat?
Um, I see here that King is saying he had to go because he had a client call. Maybe
Yeah.
throw the link on the Slack.
Mhm.
For the negotiation finals, maybe we can put the link onto
Yeah.
somewhere in the Slack so King can see it.
Yeah.
Let's do that after. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I would like to thank you so much for this time and conversation. That was pretty exciting, and I really appreciate that you taken this opportunity to talk about it, about assertiveness and empathy and negotiation. And um, I hope to have more discussions like that in the future. And of course, practice, practice, practice. This is what Chris was is suggesting to everybody, and this is why negotiation practice community. And if anyone listening, watching this video, um, you know, 6 months after this is happening. So feel free to join our LinkedIn group, Negotiation Practice Community, and we'll send you an invitation, enrollment quiz to Slack. So we'll be happy to have new members here.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad, for inviting me. It was so much fun. I hope to have lots more conversations with you and whoever else on the Slack channel. Sounds awesome. If there's there, I'm not sure if Ed or anyone else has any other questions. No, it's not too late to ask another question, Simo.
Go ahead, Simon. Maybe you can go on off mute and ask your questions. Simo?
Can you hear me?
Sure
Yep.
can.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if have you ever been in an improvised negotiation, like you haven't prepared anything to say and you just went into a negotiation? Is this possible?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Simo, for the question. But 100%, yeah, it's always possible to go into a negotiation with no preparation and things like that. I think, yeah, I can't. Yes, yes, I have, and I think we kind of all have. You know, when we're caught off guard by a client calling us, and then they want something, and then you can't give it to them. Like that's something that I think, as a project manager, I've experienced a lot. Um, I'm not sure if Vlad has, you said you're a manager at a U.S. bank, right? So I'm pretty sure you have as well. But and Ed is nodding. I'm not sure if he's nodding about this or something else, but but yeah, for sure. And when that happens, the way I would love to see what Vlad or somebody will say after that too, because I want to see if someone has different ways to do it. But when that happens, there's a few ways to handle it, right? Depends on what kind of negotiation it is. If they want something from you that's going to require you to go back and actually do a lot of thinking and preparation, then you can all you have to do is basically ask them like questions so you understand what they want. Ask them questions, ask them questions, ask them, and then at the end of the day, you know what, I think I'll have to go back and do some research and really have prepare some more materials before I can come back and do an informed discussion with you, have an informed discussion with you, right? So if you say that, sometimes they'll be okay, right? So that is one way to handle it. But if it's an urgent matter, then it's once again kind of like really thinking on your feet, asking questions. I sound like a broken record, but really just asking them as much as, you can find out from them. And then just kind of, tailoring it accordingly, knowing kind of what your bat now would be, what your walkaway point would be, what you are trying to get from it. Chances are for an impromptu improvised negotiation, it's never really going to be something that is a big negotiation. It's probably going to be a smaller one. If that's the case, then you probably will be able to know what outcome you want right away. And but the principles still apply. Ask questions, be assertive, be empathetic, understand their point of view, do a lot of labeling, and then be assertive about what is acceptable to you, what is not acceptable to you.
Does it answer your questions, you?
Yes, thank you.
I only would like to add a little bit here.
Yes.
That the negotiation outcome is about what people bring on a table, essentially. And the skill of a negotiator is actually to draw out from the person what it is not being said, essentially, right? Ed, you're laughing at me, or you're laughing at somebody else?
No, Vlad. The part about the what we bring on the table, I love that. I love that part.
Yep. So there are many different ways, and actually, negotiation tools is about bringing certain thing on the table. At the same time, it requires preparation in terms of if there is a piece of information that is not being known, neither by you nor by the other party, or if the other party is hiding it, as a Black Swan group is saying Black Swan. So if there's a Black Swan and you surface that can completely change the landscape of negotiation. This is what Chris Voss is teaching, how the Chris Voss is kind of conceptually frames the negotiation is to be able to recognize the black swans, what's not being said by the other party, surface that, and focus on that. So, Ed, do you have anything else to add here?
Actually, no. I mean, overall, as a whole, I do. And so, Sabahat, thank you so much for spending the time. I apologize of having to be a DJ. I have my children here, my wife and my kids went out shopping, so I have my 4-year-old son who's near the window saying he wants to plant bushes. So I apologize. I'm trying to have a conversation with him and multitasking. But I love what you talked about here. And there was three main things, and then a fourth that if I could just tag on. And again, I'd love to take your perspective. I love how you talked about break down the wall. I think we have it sounds like we have some similarities here in that my background is management consulting as well. So a lot of the times when you engage, it's already an open-ended question as to what we're doing, how we're doing it, and just seeing where the conversation is trying to go, and then trying to guide that conversation to not necessarily an agreed upon outcome, but an outcome that I can control, or one that I have a part of. Otherwise, if it's out of my control, then I have no input. All right, I have no. There's nothing. The outcome is not going to be in my favor. Now my son is going to start singing here, so if you might hear that in the background.
Okay.
So I love how you talk about that. This breaking down the wall part. Vlad and I had these discussions in the past where I tell them the same thing, is that before you can see eye to eye with someone, you have to break the wall down, and there's two ways of breaking that wall down. Either they're going to break the wall down, or I have to raise them up for them to break the wall down. And so Vlad's laughing because we've talked about that. You elevating them. Hey, this is a great place. It looks like you guys do some great work here. There might be some. You can even acknowledge inconsistency, but it doesn't matter because it looks like there's some things here that could be improved. However, overall, this looks like a place that's really well run. Because again, they'll label it. We label it wrong. Son, just a second. So I love how you talk about that. I love how you talked about working toward collaboration, because in the end, it's a collaborative effort. What you want, what I want, what's on the table, what can we do together? That's kind of how I approach it. I also enjoyed how you talked about the people want three things. They want to be heard, what is it? They want to be heard, understood, and I forgot the last one.
Seen, heard, and understood.
Seen, heard, and understood. And so I also call that a value proposition, but the value proposition works in both ways in that what do I bring as a value proposition? But more importantly, they want to feel valued. And I have to recognize that, whether that is how they're seen, heard, or what, or understood in the way that you've described it.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed what you talked about here in the, when we're talking about negotiation. I'm glad you had this question. What is it that we are trying to do? If people know better, why is it that they don't do better in a negotiation? They learn the skills, they learn the technique, they even practice the technique and do fantastic in practice. Then when it gets down to the real thing, poof, it's all gone and they forget. And for me, again, just my opinion, just an opinion, it appears that many people forget the reason why they're there. And I call that positioning. They are now in a different position. So in that position, now they are looking for self-preservation. In the negotiation, they're looking out for me, myself, wherein, as we talked about, and as you mentioned, it is an opportunity to collaborate. So I need to see what you're going for. In fact, where you say, ask your questions, ask the calibrate questions, the what and the how, because we want to know what and how they're thinking, so I can find that gap and match up and then move forward. Those components. So in that, there's a part where Voss talks about the 4 levels of listening, which I think are really easy to apply anywhere. And one, that the first level is listening for the gist, where you're just listening, you're not even really listening. It's just, you're just aware that the conversation's going on. The second way is understanding, is listening to understand, either the what of it. And then thirdly is understanding what it means to me. But the 4th level is the key, is understanding what it means to the person that's saying it. And so that's, again, their value proposition, valuing them. So if this, in a negotiation, if they keep, to me, again, if they keep that in mind, what is important to the other side, like, I know what I want, I just need to know what they want and see if we can move together. It's a dance. Exactly. I want, like, you want to dance that way? Well, I just want to dance. Don't be so sure of the outcome I want. I just want to dance. I don't care if I do the tango, the waltz. I just want to dance. And if you want to do the waltz, what is it? Why do you want to waltz? What is the reason for that? And how would you like to do that? Fast, slow? What music? Okay, well, I'm looking to dance and I really want to do the tango, but I'm open to the waltz. I can bring these things, you bring those things. How do we move together? And so, boom, now we move on to how we're going to do it. And that's the key of, again, probably the second or the third yes, depending on where you're at in the conversation. So if I could just follow back, Sabahat, again, I did a lot there, and I apologize for just getting that all together, because I thought you did a great job of putting those components together. If you were to go back onto your failed example, where the guy gives the 50% off, you get half off. Yeah. Again, I'm sure in retrospect, at that moment, you probably, as a consultant, you acknowledged what went wrong, and you told the client, yeah, we need to check that out. I apologize. John, why did you do that? John, that was, we need to check those numbers. We don't know if this is feasible. If you would go back to that, what would you change? If you were in a live situation now, how would you have approached that differently, knowing that you have these negotiation techniques? Thank you.
Sabahat, you probably kick him under the table, right?
No, I just take the smack him across the table already. I'm just kidding. Never, no violence ever. First of all, thank you so much for that, Ed, for that lightning roundup of that. Is so that's great. I love that. Yes. So how would I approach that now? See, and if I was at the live table, I don't know if I could have done anything that much differently with that. I could have maybe, because at that time, like as a team, when you're negotiating as a team, right? I think one of my assumption was that I thought we knew what our roles were. Another assumption was I thought that I'm negotiating with them, but actually it was a team negotiation versus a team negotiation, right? And that was another assumption that I did not know. That was what was happening. I thought it was just me versus them. It was actually, hi, Ed's little guy. It was actually a team versus a team, right? So I think if in a team negotiation, if that happens and your team member just kind of goes rogue, right, and just gives them the farm, I think I personally would not have started a discussion with the team member right away, because as like I think it's always about like showing a united front. If you're with a client, against a client, in front of a client, it's always about that. So I don't know what I would have done differently in that situation, to be very honest. I think at the time what I did was basically kind of dance around the issue and saying, well, I don't think half off is quite right because John here, has not looked at the numbers I have this morning, and I'm not sure if we can do that, or even if we could, right? Like just giving it out right out of the bat is never my style, right? We have to get to the half off because that would be my very, very end point that I would give away. So I don't know what I would have done differently for that, except before getting there, I would just have to check my assumptions and kind of lay the groundwork for that, our expectations when going in. Yeah. Would you guys have done anything differently? The two of you, I'll ask the two of you.
Sure. The reason I asked that question is because now that we have these skills, again, it's just, I would just, again, if you wouldn't be against the idea of just hearing this part out.
Please.
It'd be, knowing that it impacted them the way they did. Hey, 50% off. Yeah, we'll take it. Well, John said we could do it, so we're going to do it. I don't know. I would turn it on that side then. I'm like, I think I might say something like, hey, I'm going to label it. I'm going to do LMQ. Hey, it sounds like a great offer. 50%, John, you pray out a number. We haven't really done the, I'd say it out front. It may sound like a great idea, but I don't know if it's even feasible. We have, it looks like 50% is fantastic, but we might have to look to see if this is a really feasible idea. We want this to work for you. And right now we haven't even done the calculation to see if that'll even work. In fact, would it even hurt you if we brought this deal to you, because it hasn't really been, vetted. We haven't vetted this hasn't been vetted fully. If we were to incorporate this at this price, it may not truly exist. In fact, if we were to give it to you at this price, we might have to tailor down some of the aspects of it, right? We might have to tailor down the aspects of it because we can't provide that to you in the way that we have previously described at the full price.
Yeah.
Again, we came here with these options, with this, knowing now that it's at 50%, and John, said that. I said obviously it's because he wants to make sure that this deal works for you. However, it's for us to move down to a smaller amount at 50%. This would actually have to go back to vetting with our corporate leaders to make sure this is something that we can provide. And the last thing I want to do is make sure we is impact our relationship in a negative way by stating we can provide something when we know we can't. Would you be against the idea if we meet again in about 2 days and I can confirm whether or not this can be done at 50%? I would, with those skills, I think I would try it that way. Again, just a thought. I'd love to hear other thoughts.
Vlad?
It seems like this could be the case. I mean, according to what we discussed before, could be the case that assertiveness may help a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of, yeah. Oh, I was very assertive with the guy after I was done my meeting. Let's just put it that way. Took him aside. I was very assertive. But yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, sometimes things happen and you need to act quickly, and you need to be very direct about what you really want and what is really feasible. And I like how Ed put together this example, because this communicates the message, and it communicates it in a way that is not violent. It is very respectful, and at the same time projects the mutual purpose, because the mutual purpose is to continue business and be well on both sides. So it's not like because of some mistake of one of the members, okay, that person is on our team, and yes, that was said prematurely, we apologize. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. I mean, this is kind of like where assertiveness really kicks in at this point. Sorry, I apologize for that. That was something that we would love to do.
That's exactly it. And thank you both. Like that's kind of exactly more or less kind of what I've tried to dance around the issue of that. And but like exactly. I try to be assertive with the client at that point too. But you know how it is when you are in a negotiation and one of them just gives it all away, right? I said, let's meet again. Let me go back to my numbers, see if this is possible, come back to you. But then all I kept hearing was that, oh, but they said they could do 50%, but that guy on your team said it. So, you know what, if you show them, it's like showing them all your cards at once, right? If you show them all your cards, they're going to pick their card that they want like the most, right? And that is one of the other reasons so why, as you know, as negotiation practitioners, we don't show all our cards at once, right? Could I have done the half off? Probably, yes. Do I want to tell them in the first 15 minutes of meeting them? No, right? So, and do I want to, you know, yeah, give it to them right away? Absolutely not, right? Went back, tried to work it out. 50% off would hurt my project. I wouldn't die, you know, it wouldn't sink my portfolio completely. But at the end, I had to give it away to him after, like, you know, working with him for about 2 weeks, trying to go back and forth, because they then had, that was the goalpost by then, right? That was what they were going to work with and nothing else. Like nothing, you know? So
they're negotiators too, and therefore they see it as a feasibility, and they thought, okay, these guys can actually do this. If one of the members pronounced that, this is probably feasible for them to do this.
Exactly. And as negotiators, we also know, right? We know, like, they're doing the same thing we're doing, right? Like, we know that whenever we like hear something that we can use later on back in the conversation, we will always do that. So they heard this. So they're like, ah, there you go. Now I can continue using this over and over again. No matter if I talk to Sabahat, have to deal with her for 2 weeks on the same deal. We're working on this deal. But I heard that. So that benefits me. So I'm going to always bring it back to this, right? So it's very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Actually, I have another example, not about me losing the negotiation. This one I'm very proud of. I did win it, but it was where I started off very empathetic. At the end, I got extremely assertive, to the point where it's probably a bit aggressive near the end, you know. But that is because you had to kind of also gauge your sort of like the conversation as well. At which, you know, at some points you have to also really, really gauge it. You can be empathetic, you can be really nice. The other person is just not playing ball, and they want nothing to do with building rapport. They don't want nothing to do with collaborating. They want nothing to do with, you know, anything. And that's when you could be like, you know what? If this is how you want to play, I've tried to bring down those walls, but all you want to do is you want to take a sledgehammer to it. Then at some point you'd have to be like, you know what? I just have to match you now, right? If all they have been is a different level altogether, then you have to near the end be like, I'm going to match you. That's, you know, I have that in up my sleeve too, right? So having the whole range of the empathy to assertiveness up your sleeve, so you can kind of tailor it to the conversation, is, I think, important.
Yeah, no, Sabahat, I would agree. On that spectrum of emotional control is the key of whether you have, you know, empathetic to aggressive, I would say. And sometimes for some folks, they only hear the aggressive, like when you match their tone. So you mentioned, someone had mentioned a car salesman earlier. The car salesman will match your cadence, your tone, to where you're at. You're high and loud. Again, I can get excited and talk very fast. Someone will match me, and all of a sudden I hear them better. I would agree with you. I had a client that was, it would appear that only when I raised my voice could she hear me.
Yes.
And that's not a comfortable space I like to be in. However, for that situation and with her, only at those times, you know, for that 1 hour of work in a day, for those 15-minute segments, I would have to elevate my voice almost in an aggressive tone because she heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that's all they would respond to, you know, like that's all they choose to hear and respond to. Exactly. So yeah, matching the tone. Yeah, that's another topic.
Awesome. We had a lot of interesting discussions today. I'm checking the time here. We're a little more than 1 hour, and I don't want to really abuse your time here. I'm wondering if you would like to stay a little bit longer and talk about a couple more questions, or we call it a day and maybe continue next time.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to maybe continue another time, Vlad, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining and answering the questions, Sabahat. I sincerely wish you every success in your career and your business that you do for executive coaching and leadership coaching. It's pretty exciting. We'll talk about leadership more. I had a leadership call in negotiation practice community as well. It kind of faded away, but we can resurrect that if you would like to uh, spend some time here talking to community and maybe educate us a little bit about what you do. So looking forward to collaborate later on and see you in practice.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would love to kind of hang around in Slack and chat with you all more. Thank you so much, Vlad, for the great questions. Thanks so much, Ed, for their awesome input as well. Simo for asking those questions. It was really nice spending the last hour with you guys.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Talk
Thank
to
you.
you
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
soon.
Bye.